I have only briefly mentioned Lucifer, and some of you seem to want to hear about my experience with him. Indeed, meeting Lucifer at the time was an experience that shook me to my core, but that also gave me profound growth and helped me let go of some prejudices. It ended up being an initiation of sorts that Lucifer guided me throughout a few days. As I said in the video about contacting my holy guardian angel, it all began with a ritual for Metatron, asking that he bring me to having knowledge and conversation with my HGA. A few days later, I was visited by Lucifer. I didn't realize that those things were connected, and even in my last video I still wasn't sure of it. But as I began doing these videos about my magical journey, some parts of it are becoming clearer to me. And more it makes sense that this was also part of the process that Metatron brought to my life in order to prepare me for meeting with the HGA and eventually evoking the Abramelin hierarchy. So in this video we're gonna go over exactly my first contacts with Lucifer. If you enjoy it, please leave a like, leave a comment of any questions you might have, and without spending any money, the absolute best thing you can do to help me is watching this video until the end. If you want to go even further, you can support me on Patreon. You will not only be a part of our monthly ritual aimed at bringing benefits at all areas of your life, I've also posted there the rituals that I personally use, so you can copy it, adapt it, and make it your own and use it in your practice, plus, of course, chatting with me and the collective chat for like-minded people. By the way, for all Patreons, we have already begun the first of our monthly rituals we established to the benefit of all involved, and we did a first ritual with the Epitarchia Mystica, an Enochian system from John Dee. And it has been beautiful work, even though at the time it was only 4 people. One of them was particularly interested in tuning in to their energy. So at the end of the ritual I asked if he felt anything. First, he said no, but later, when I was answering him about how to make talismans, he shared that the spirits definitely came around big time not soon after he sent the previous message. And they've been with him all day, they feel so awesome, and we're catching big vibes out here. Another Patreon said that he didn't know we were doing the ritual yesterday on the 29th, but it turned out to be a very meaningful day for him, as the 29th has represented new beginnings in his life, and realizing that made everything feel more aligned. Plus an intense sensation of heat throughout his body about 20 minutes after I was beginning the ritual, followed by a noticeable cold in his hands. The whole idea of the ritual was to establish this egregore to the Patreon, so it does have, let's say, kind of like a retroactive effect if you join later, because that's the whole structure. I really wish this can bring many spiritual blessings to the life of many people. So if you're interested, the link for the Patreon is in the description. Thank you very much. Now let's get back to the story. At the time, the most demonic entities that I had worked with were from the Goetia, and only a few. I was still afraid of dealing with any of the kings from the Goetia, like Asmodeus, or Paimon, or Corson. Whatever king I felt I wasn't ready at, it was off limits. Of course, given the fame of their power and the difficulty to deal with them. So, if I didn't feel ready even for a Goetia king, what could be said of Lucifer? I had seen people sharing their experiences with Lucifer online, but had never even considered working with him. But of course, I had already seen his sigils many times before, and it felt like a powerful being that I could maybe one day work with when I had some extra years of experience. After the ritual with Metatron, I was just in a normal day, and during the evening, the sigil of Lucifer began popping into my head. It simply appeared in my imagination, in my mind's eye. I didn't think much of it, just a memory or a fleeting thought. So I ignored it and kept studying but it showed up again within less than 30 seconds. But okay, I ignored it again, and it kept happening again and again in smaller and smaller time frames. Eventually, the sigil was a constant in my mind's eye. I would also see in deeper detail, at least much more detail than I was used to at the time. It was as if the sigil was made of metal, floating on a dark background with a black fog around it. At this point, this was already weird, and I began feeling that maybe Lucifer might want something with me or might be trying to send a message. When I first faced this idea, I felt a chill coming down my spine. My heart began accelerating, and I did not feel prepared for dealing with him in any way. The thoughts through my head rushed of what banishing am I gonna do? What should I do? The fear only grew stronger when, out of the dark fog around the sigil, appeared the man. Wearing a full black suit, no wings, his hair was blonde and very straight. His face was beautiful. He was a handsome man, incredibly well-groomed and well-suited. He talked to me, calm and collected. He was very respectful and calm in everything that he said. I felt that he was caring towards me, you know? I felt that he knew that I was afraid and he didn't want to startle me further. So he had, in a way, a very kind energy. It felt good. But I still had some prejudice and fear towards him. In the back of my mind, I thought that he could be lying. He could be just tricking me, showing himself as something that he's not. Of course, he knows what I value and can emulate it to manipulate me. Of course, having a thought at the back of the head is just the same as saying it to such a being, and of course, he was aware of it. He laughed, and I became aware that he had just heard this back of the head thought. My anxiety grew, but he began explaining me that although he is the king of hell, he is very caring towards humans and likes to help us and elevate us. Most specifically, he likes us to help us elevate ourselves, divinizing us, helping us achieve enlightened states of consciousness. At some point, those back of the head thoughts appeared again, still doubting him. I already knew he was aware of my thoughts, so I grew uncomfortable and more afraid, but he remained calm and was trying to calm me down. He said I should evoke an archangel I trust and verify if what he's saying was true. So I did. I have a personal process I received to contact the archangels of the Sephiroth, and I did a quick meditation. I did it, and Haziel showed up. I tested the spirit, and that's an angel I have a very deep bond with. I trust him very much, and he told me that Lucifer was being truthful. He really does care about ethics and human growth. After that, I got calmer, and Lucifer revealed more of himself to me, explaining that he was akin to a bodhisattva, which is a Buddhist concept of a person who is already enlightened but remains in a body to help others. He told me he had fallen and lost the capacity to experience through the lens of oneness. In other words, he had lost access to the divine place of existence. But he had grown since then, and through his journey, he too became enlightened, gaining back access to divine oneness at such point. Just like a bodhisattva, he chose to maintain his ego, his individuality, to rule the hellish realms, gathering power and influence to take care and protect those who choose to follow him, and that his true goal is to lead his followers, and eventually humankind, to this state of oneness, to a complete process of self-divinization. Of course, his followers first. The concept he presented me was deeply beautiful in my eyes, and I began having some admiration towards him. We began having long talks about his past and his goals, so much so that I began trusting him. If everything he was saying was truthful, he was indeed a powerful and amazingly beautiful and beneficent spirit. Eventually, the conversation was over and he went away, and that first encounter was finished. I was beginning to trust him, but still a bit skeptical. Since I had evoked Haziel under the presence of Lucifer, maybe he could have manipulated me, maybe he just created the impression of an angel just to trick me. So I did the whole procedure once again to contact Haziel, who once again said that he had been the correct Raziel back then, and confirming that all Lucifer had told me was indeed truthful. It was only then that this background paranoia towards Lucifer I had truly ceased, and I began seeing him as the great spirit that he truly is. But that wasn't over. Lucifer still had more in store for me. The next day, he visited me once again, and we spoke about creation, about how God immerses itself in the material world, how the goal of the material is for it to experience individuality. We talked about how all forms of life are made of God and can reorganize themselves as a person to reflect and better allow the flow of divine energy, which is the goal of the universe. He also spoke of the importance of shadow work and knowing yourself and being aware of your flaws and limitations to make plans and act in ways that minimize those risks, and of course, the importance of self-respect and imposing limits in our relationships. And he also told me that the actual goal of the universe, which is something I already believed in, that it was to divinize the individual until all is God, and we all experience from the perspective of being God. Of course, everything that is God, so we already are all God, but still most of humanity has no idea of this divine secret of our true essence. Everything he had taught me was perfectly aligned with all my previous lessons that I have received from all parts of spirituality. After such, he felt I had understood a good deal of the divine dynamics, and he proceeded to give me a badge, similar to a pentacle or a lamen for the ceremonial magician, to be worn in my chest. He told me it would work in a similar way to the Pentacle of Solomon, and all diamonds I worked with from there on out would see it as a proof of my connection with Lucifer and his protection towards me. He told me that this would increase my spiritual authority and allow me to begin working with the Goetia kings without fear. He also told me that it also represented my connection to the divine and Lucifer recognition of such. In the astral, it just looked like a golden circular talisman attached to my chest, emanating golden light. Right after he placed it there, I began feeling a hot energy in my chest, only in the left side, which is where he had put it. I could feel the energy rushing inside my heart and spreading throughout my body. It wasn't pain, but the sensation was as close to physical as a spiritual sensation can get. For one last time during my journey with Lucifer, I felt fear. Maybe that was his plan all along, just to put this negative energy in my chest. He as usual remained calm, then said that no, it wasn't. He had been truthful throughout. He then said, if I feel it's too much of a demonic force, we could balance things out. He then proceeded to call Metatron, who quickly showed up. They said nothing to one another, but I knew they were communicating somehow. And at the end, Metatron said that he would balance things out, putting another lamen, this time on the right side of my chest. His emanated pure white light, but its insides were like pure darkness with multiple colors arising from it and going away, which kinda made me think of quantum fluctuations. Once again, I felt the energy in my chest, now both sides in equilibrium. I didn't get any ecstasy-like feelings as I did with my HGA, but it was still a strong experience. After 1 or 2 days, I called Metatron again just to see if it had been indeed him during the experience. Him, just like Raziel, said that yes. And since then, I don't recall having feared Lucifer ever again. Now seeing him as an incredibly powerful and beneficial spirit to have by my side. He continues to guide me over time, and as I finish writing this script, I feel that this contact was indeed part of the results from my request to Metatron. to eventually meet the HGA. I had to go through some of the prejudices I had to allow for a purer view of the world, more accepting of all aspects of manifestation, both light and dark. And by the way, Lucifer is so far the only diamond I consider to have this bodhisattva status, if we can call it that. Meaning that most others are not that safe to work with, but indeed, although he's extremely powerful, I also think, well, I don't think he's a beginner spirit in any regard, but I don't think he means harm towards humans, and I truly believe that, which is something I wouldn't say about most other demons. Of course, he can still have something against you if you're a dick towards him, so, just basic respect and everything as usual. This video will be a bit shorter, at least comparing to the last ones, because in a way this is still part of my HGA story, right? Sort of like a pre-initiation I needed to go through before I actually did the Abramelin, which by the way you should watch, and I'm recommending to you here at the end. Also, please leave a like, thank you very much for watching until the end, share this with someone who will enjoy it, and support us on Patreon. Goodbye!